Two people download the same AI tool on the same day. Same interface. Same subscription. Same model. 6 months later, one of them has restructured how they work. They finish deeper work faster, they've stopped doing tasks that used to consume hours, and they feel like they're operating with a genuine advantage. The other person uses the tool occasionally, mostly to clean up emails, sometimes to draft something quickly. But nothing has really changed. They'll tell you AI is useful, but their workflow looks almost identical to what it looked like before. Same tools, very different outcomes. The question is, what's the difference? Because the answer is not skill. It's not intelligence. It's not even effort. The difference is something earlier than all of those things, and most people never notice it. If you are between 20 and 35 years old, and you do knowledge work, writing, analysis, research, planning, communication, anything that runs through your brain before it gets to a screen, this video is directly about how the next few years will go for you. Not the next few decades. The next few years. Because the gap between people who use AI tools effectively and people who use them passively is compounding right now. Every month that someone has a real system for how they work with these tools, they are pulling further ahead. Not because they're working harder, because they're operating with a different mental model. And here's why that matters urgently. AI tools are not neutral. They do not deliver the same value to everyone who opens them. They surface value in proportion to how clearly you've already thought about your work. If you bring vagueness in, you get vagueness back. If you bring clarity in, clarity about what you're trying to do, why and what good looks like, the output changes completely. Most people bring vagueness. And so most people conclude, it's a useful tool, but not transformative. There's a study from MIT's Sloan School, published in 2023, that looked at how consultants used AI tools on real tasks. The researchers split participants into two groups. Both groups had access to the same AI, but the tasks were designed carefully. Some tasks were within what AI is genuinely good at, and some were outside it. Here's what they found. For tasks inside the model's capabilities, the people using AI performed significantly better, higher quality outputs, faster, more consistently. That part you've probably heard. But here's the part that gets less attention. For tasks that were outside the model's capabilities, tasks that required judgment, original synthesis, real-world grounding, the people using AI actually performed worse than those who didn't use it at all. They trusted the output. They stopped thinking critically. The tool made them more confident, while making them less accurate. What that study was actually measuring, without naming it this way, was the presence or absence of a mental model. The people who got worse outcomes weren't stupid or careless. They just hadn't developed a framework for knowing when to use the tool and how. They were treating AI as an answer machine. And some of the time, that works. But at exactly the moments when it matters most, it fails. That is the real split. So what is the mental model that highly productive people are actually using? It has 4 parts, and each one is a cause that leads to the next effect. Step 1. They separate thinking from producing. Most people open an AI tool and immediately ask it to produce something. Write this email. Summarize this document. Draft this proposal. They skip straight to output. Highly productive people do something different first. They think before they prompt. Not for hours, sometimes for 2 minutes. But they spend time articulating what they actually want, what constraints matter, what they already know, and what success looks like. Think of it this way. A general contractor doesn't hand tools to a subcontractor before specifying the job. The quality of the output is set before the work begins, not during it. When you skip this step, the AI produces something that looks right, but isn't quite right. And you spend the next 30 minutes editing instead of the next 2 minutes prompting correctly. The time you thought you saved evaporates. And worse, you start to believe the tool isn't that powerful, when actually the problem was the brief. Step 2. They use AI for the right layer of work. There are roughly 3 layers to any knowledge task. The first layer is execution, formatting, summarizing, drafting, transcribing, translating, searching. Routine, repeatable, low stakes. The second layer is judgment, deciding what matters, prioritizing, evaluating quality, making trade-offs. The third layer is direction, knowing what problem you're actually trying to solve and why it matters. AI is currently excellent at the first layer. It's unreliable at the second. It cannot do the third at all. Because direction requires context, values, and understanding of consequence that only you have. Highly productive people do not use AI at all 3 layers. They use it at layer 1, stay present at layer 2, and never outsource layer 3. This sounds simple. It is not how most people actually behave. Most people, over time, drift toward asking AI to make decisions for them. And every time that happens, they get a plausible-sounding answer that they haven't actually thought through. Now that you understand the layer model, here's why it matters for the next step. Step 3. They build feedback loops, not just outputs. Here's where most people stop. They use AI to produce a thing. That thing is the end of the interaction. Highly productive people treat every interaction as data. When an AI output is good, they ask, why was it good? What did I do in the prompt that caused that? When it's bad, they ask the same question in reverse. Over 3 months, someone doing this builds an internal library of what works. They start to know intuitively how to frame a task. They develop judgment about which types of questions get sharp answers and which get mediocre ones. They get progressively faster and more accurate. The person who doesn't do this plateaus. They stay at roughly the same level of output quality because they're not learning from the interaction. They're just consuming outputs. This is the compounding dynamic. The feedback loop user gets better every week. The output consumer stays flat. Step 4. They protect their independent thinking deliberately. This is the step that almost nobody talks about, but it may be the most important. There is a real cognitive risk in using AI tools heavily without awareness. The risk is not that AI makes you lazy. It's subtler than that. It's that AI makes you less practiced at the kind of thinking that produces the judgment in step 2 and the direction in step 3. If you stop working through problems from scratch, you stop building the mental muscle for doing that. And then, when a situation arrives where the AI genuinely cannot help you, or you need original judgment under pressure in a novel situation, you discover that muscle has atrophied. Highly productive people protect deliberate thinking time. They still write rough drafts before going to AI. They still reason through problems before asking for a summary. Not because it's more efficient in the moment, because it's how they maintain the capability that makes everything else work. Here's what the 2 outcomes look like from the inside. You're a year into using AI tools without this mental model. You use them often. You save time on small tasks. But you've noticed something. You feel slightly less confident in your own judgment than you used to. You're a little slower to commit to an opinion. When someone asks you to think through something complex, you find yourself reaching for AI first, even on things you would have previously handled immediately. You're more productive at the surface level. You're slightly less capable at the level below. Now here's the other version. You've spent the same year with a clear mental model. You use AI heavily, but you've been deliberate about which layer you're operating on. Your execution work is 40% faster and more consistent. But more importantly, your judgment work is sharper than it was, because you've freed up cognitive capacity by offloading routine execution. You're doing more actual thinking than you were before, not less. And because you've been building feedback loops, your AI interactions are getting progressively better. Your prompts are tighter. Your results are more reliable. Your sense of when to trust and when to verify is calibrated. Same tools. 12 months later. Genuinely different capabilities. The second person isn't smarter. They had a framework early. and they stuck to it. 1. Reframe. Stop thinking about AI tools as productivity tools. Start thinking about them as cognitive leverage tools, and understand what leverage actually means. Leverage multiplies what you bring to it. A lever doesn't generate force. It amplifies force. If you bring 10 units of clarity to an AI interaction, you might get back 50 units of output. If you bring 2 units of vagueness, you get back 10 units of vagueness, fast. The multiplier is real, but it operates on what you bring in, not despite what you bring in. This reframe changes how you behave before you ever open the tool. Instead of asking, what can I get AI to do for me? You start asking, how do I need to think before I engage with this? That 2-minute pause, clarifying what you want, what success looks like, which layer of work this is. That pause is where the quality difference is set. The mental model: clarity in, leverage out. Vagueness in, vagueness out. Faster. Build the habit of thinking before prompting. Not always, not for small tasks, but for anything that matters. That 2-minute pause is the highest return use of your time in a working day. So let's answer the question we opened with. 2 people, same tools, 6 months later, genuinely different outcomes. The difference is never the AI itself. It's whether they thought about what they were bringing to it. The person who got better outcomes brought clarity to the interaction, used AI at the right layer, treated every output as feedback, and protected their own thinking capacity. The person who plateaued outsourced the thinking along with the execution. The single sentence: AI is a lever, and levers only amplify what you bring. But here's the question that follows from this, and it's the one that matters more as these tools get more powerful. If the value of AI interaction depends on the clarity and quality of your own thinking, then the real question becomes, how do you build that thinking capacity over time? Which cognitive skills compound, and which ones atrophy in an environment where you can always defer to a model? That's the question behind the next video.